Pray to God, Allah, Jehovah, and anybody else we think will listen. Having said all of that, it is time to stop allowing others to define us. Rather, it is time for us to gather our collective intellect and our resourcefulness and confront the ills of our society that create roadblocks and obstacles to our success. We don't need anybody lecturing us about responsibility. We are profoundly responsible. We don't need to promise keep, atone, bemoan, or scapegoat. We need to use our collective power to shape public policy, create opportunity, fight discrimination, racism, favoritism, and old boy networkism. Today, we put America on notice. We do not march just for the sake of marching. We do not rally in the rain and the cold because we have nothing else to do. We are driven by our commitment to ourselves, our children, our families, to live in a fair and just society that respects us and our role in this nation and in this world. We are sick and tired of illegal drugs, drug addiction, drug crime and violence. We are fighting drugs in our communities, but we want the American government and America's corporations to join us in a real war on drugs. According to the Black Community Crusade for Children, each day in America, 94 African American children are arrested for drug offenses. 151 are arrested for crimes of violence, and 1,118 are victims of violent crime. This is every day. We insist on drug prevention resources in our schools, more recreational facilities in our neighborhoods. We will fight for after-school activities, music and drama and arts programs in our communities. And yes, sisters, I know, more than anything, we want an end to the scourge of drugs in our society. America, I ask you today, will you join us in a real war on drugs? Will you discontinue the rhetoric, the phony just say no campaigns? Will you stop building prisons for young, misguided African Americans and develop real public policy to divert our young people from prisons with jobs and opportunities? Will you end the senseless, racist, and unfair disparities in sentencing between crack cocaine and powder cocaine? Will you stop the mandatory prison sentencing for young Black men and women and arrest and convict the big-time dope dealers in high places and the sophisticated money launderers? Will you discontinue government intelligence community practices that allow the CIA and the DEA and the DIA to deal drugs to support their activities? In 1994, Black women comprised 82% of women sentenced for crack cocaine offenses. Black women today, sisters, represent 50% of the nation's female population in prison. In fact, the 1994 figures indicate the number of African American women sentenced to more than 1 year in state and federal prison grew at a faster rate than any other group. That 1994 rate increase, listen to this, the increase of African American women incarcerated was 225% for African American women. So sisters, we march and rally today because we want to put an end to a system of so-called justice that imprisoned 24-year-old Kimba Smith, a junior in college, one of our best and our brightest. They sentenced Kimba to 24 years mandatory prison sentence, charged with conspiracy, not because they caught her with drugs, not because she possessed drugs, not because she was dealing in drugs. She happened to have a boyfriend who was dealing in drugs, and now she is serving 24 years. We march today because we're gonna free Kimba and other young blacks who are caught up in the criminal justice system that incorporates young blacks who may be foolish, but they're not the real criminals. And yet, these small-time offenders are incarcerated while this country is allowing dope to cross over our borders under the banner of trade and profits, while the drug cartels are using uninspected trucks that come across the border from Mexico carrying cans, boxes, cartons, and barrels of cocaine disguised as food products and manufactured goods. Yet, the North America Free Trade Agreement and the so-called fast-track legislation ignore this drug epidemic in a quest for profits for American businesses and corporations. African American women must join with organized labor and fight further efforts by government to fast-track trade with no questions asked. Our community's real war on drugs. I have called for a full investigation of the information that was unveiled by Gary Webb of the San Jose Mercury newspaper, linking the sale of tons of cocaine in South Central Los Angeles to the CIA and funding of the Contras in a war against the Sandinistas in Nicaragua. I'm convinced the CIA did play a role in the explosion of crack cocaine in South Central Los Angeles in their efforts to fund the army of the Contras. Presently, there are 3 investigations that are now being conducted. I am told we will have the results of these investigations in the next 30 to 60 days. It does not matter what they conclude. I am convinced that all of us who have gotten close to this, who have investigated this, Dick Gregory and I and others, that we have been given this glimpse into the government intelligence community's use of drugs in their covert operations. African American women, we must insist on public policy that will prevent drug activities and involvement by tax-supported CIA and other intelligence agencies. We need sensible and tough government policies to interdict drugs at the borders, break up the drug cartels in Central America, crack down on the big banks and financial institutions that launder drug money, support investment and drug education and prevention, promote investment in our young people rather than expansion of tax-supported prisons that incarcerate and warehouse young people. We've got to have a frontal assault and a war on big-time drug dealers. That is what we rally about today. As African American women, we're not powerless or helpless. African American women in South Africa reminded us when Winnie Mandela led that struggle against apartheid. She reminded everybody, now that you have touched the women, you have touched the rock. I add, and we will not be moved. We call on government and elected officials to rethink what they do and how they do it. We call on a new politic of integrity and principled leadership. I ask my colleagues today in Washington to stop using race as a wedge issue. Stop the assault on affirmative action. Stop the polarizing. Back off the attacks. Back off of the attacks on my people and our children. We call on corporate America. Today, corporate America, we define who we are and what we want. We're not going to spend our dollars and consume your goods and services if you keep exploiting our jobs to third world countries for cheap labor and exploiting women and children in other countries. We're not going to allow you to continue to discriminate in job opportunities. We're not going to allow your foundation funding to continue to bypass our communities. Do you hear me, Nike? Do you hear me, Eddie Bauer? Do you hear me, Texaco?
Yes.
Are you aware, Pitney Bowes? Where are you, Avis? Shell Oil, we're coming back after you. Remember South Africa and now Nigeria. Today, we declare we will register more of our people to vote and elect more people to office who represent our dreams and our hopes. We will elect politicians who respect us and who will work to get rid of dishonest, polarizing politicians who divide America. We will also use our buying power to become more selective in our purchase of goods and projects. Do you hear me, Nike? To the banks and financial institutions, we want investment in our communities, loans and credit to develop businesses and growth for our communities. We're not going to allow you to launder drug money and support the pain and devastation of drugs in our communities while you redline us and deny us access to credit and investment. Do you hear me, Citicorp? We will leave here today, sisters, we will leave here today, and we will go back to our communities. We'll go back to our jobs on Monday, back to our schools and our classrooms as students, back to our housing developments as welfare mothers struggling to survive in an atmosphere of mean-spirited politics. We will go back to our leadership roles to fight against racism and marginalization. To our sisters who are homeless and incarcerated, we will never forget you. We will fight for you. After today, we will never be the same. This march, this rally, is truly a defining moment in all of our lives. America, be placed on notice. We know who we are. We understand our collective power. Following today, we will act on that power. Thank you very much.
Congresswoman Maxine Waters. All right. We now call on Sister. Oh, may I have your attention, please? The city of Philadelphia has in its possession 21 children at the EMS. And if you have lost a child, I suggest you check there, because it's not going to be very long before they place these children in DHS. 21st and Pennsylvania Avenue is where these children are. 21 of our children. As we continue with the program, I'm going to call up to the stage now Sister Ayanna Gregory. She is the daughter of activist Dick Gregory, and she will honor us with the South African National Anthem.
I love you, I bless you, I truly appreciate you. As I share the Tanzanian and South African National Anthem, know that the words translate in English to mean, God bless Africa so that it can move on and progress. Listen to our prayers. Bless us. Come into our spirit. Come into our soul. Bless us, we the children of Africa. Mungu ibariki Afrika ili ipate kuendelea. Maombi yetu yasikilizwe. Uje utubariki. Uje utubariki. Uje Roho. Uje Roho. Uje Roho. Uje Roho. Uje Roho. Uje Roho. Utubariki. Uje utubariki. Inkosi sikeleli Afrika. Malupakan Yesu ponduluayo. Izwai mitandazo yetu. Kosi sikelela tina lusa polwayo. Woza moya. Woza moya. Woza moya. Woza moya. Woza moya. Oh yingwele usisikelela tina lusa polwayo. Thank you. I love you.
We will now have a prayer by Sister Martha Muhammad, native of Dominican Republic, speaking on the behalf of millions of sisters from the Caribbean and America. May we have Sister Martha Chavez Muhammad.
¿Qué pasa? Buenas tardes. In behalf of 23 million of Hispanic living in the United States of America, in behalf to all my sisters from Cuba, Panama, Colombia, Puerto Rico, Haiti, Peru, Venezuela, Central America, South America, I bring you greetings. With permission of the organizer, I would like to ask my husband to assist me.
Assalamu alaikum. We're going to be very brief. I'm going to read my wife's prayer in English, and she will say it in Spanish. Dear God, Allah Almighty,
Oh Dios Todogeneroso nuestro,
bless this holy day.
bendice este día glorioso.
Bless Sister Filet and Sister Asia.
Bendice a Sister Filet and Sister Asia, las organizadoras de esta marcha.
And all of the hard-working sisters that make this holy day possible.
Y todas nuestras hermanas que hicieron este día posible.
Dear God, Allah Almighty,
Oh Dios, Alá Todopoderoso,
bless all of these women.
bendice todas esas hermanas mujeres de color.
Bless all of these families
Bendice toda esta familia
who are spread all over the world.
que fuimos divididos en el mundo entero.
Some speak English.
Algunos hablan inglés.
Some speak Spanish.
Otros hablamos español.
Some speak French.
Il y a de quelqu'un qui parle aussi français.
Some speak Portuguese.
Il y a de gens qui parlent portugués.
But we're all sisters. We're all brothers.
Pero somos todos hermanos y hermanas.
Long live the spirit of the Million Woman March.
Una vida larga para la marcha de las mujeres.
Long live the spirit of the Million Woman March.
Una bendición grande para la marcha de las mujeres.
Dear God, Allah Almighty,
Oh Dios Todopoderoso Alá,
may the spirit of this day live long into the next century.
haz posible que el espíritu de este día continúe hasta la próxima década,
As we fight for freedom,
porque tenemos que continuar por libertad,
as we pray for justice,
así como oramos por justicia,
as we unite in unity.
así como tenemos que unirnos en unidad.
Dear God, bless this holy day.
Oh Dios, bendice este día.
Assalamu alaikum, peace be unto you.
La paz sea con ustedes.
The minister and Mrs. Benjamin Chavez Muhammad. Our next presenter is Dr. Piola Butler Davis, psychologist from Orlando, Florida. She has worked all over the world. She's a grandmother of 7 and a great-grandmother of 3. Dr. Piola Butler Davis of South Africa. Dues.
Oh, my sisters! Oh, my brothers! I thank the Almighty God, the author and finisher of our faith, for allowing us to be here at this moment in time. We were the first. They tried to make us the last. But at this moment, we have come full circle first. Our mothers, our sisters, our daughters on the continent from which we were snatched said to me when I was in South Africa just a short while ago that God suffered us to come to this nation to learn the ways of the other. But now was the time for us to reach back and take the hands of our sisters on the continent to take our rightful places, to be the leaders, to heal a dying world. It is so great that the mothers who started this Million Women March asked our mother, Winnie Mandela, to come here to lead the march and to speak to us. It is an awesome task to introduce a woman who is the mother of a nation and the mother of us all. I thank God for this moment, and let me try to share with you something about our sister. She is President Nomzamo Winnie Mandela. She is the head of the African National Congress Women's League. She was born in 1934 in Bizano, in what is now a province, Eastern Cape Province. She was educated as a medical social worker, the first black social worker in South Africa. She became involved in ANC very early in her career, and at the age of 24, in 1958, she met a cool dude and married him. His name is Nelson Mandela. He was deeply involved in the ANC as an attorney and fighting against apartheid that was created by a minority white population. Winnie Mandela has always been deeply involved in all of her convictions, and she stood up for any restrictions that kept black South Africans struggling against death, destruction, and deportation. This is her way of life. And do you know that from 1962 to 1975, she was banished because of her activism? In 1964, when Nelson Mandela was imprisoned for life, Winnie had to be mother and father for their children and leader of a revolution because of her continuous struggle. She was imprisoned and held in solitary confinement for 17 months in 1969. Often in the wee hours of the morning, when Winnie was in bed, tired, with her 2 babies, the white regime would kick down her door, drag her out of bed, leaving her babies alone and in fear, crying for their mother. Winnie was beaten many times. This kind of violation occurred against her so often, she began to pack a bag and keep it up on the shelf so that when the white policeman came and kicked down the door, she would grab the bag and run out to them for them to lock her up so her babies wouldn't have to cry. And she told the neighbors, when they come to get me, you come and take my babies. Oh my God, how many times were they traumatized? How long, my God? The bogus apartheid government did not know what to do with Winnie Mandela. No matter whether they banned her, beat her, placed her under house arrest, put her in solitary confinement in prison, intense interrogation, perpetual government harassment. Oh, there were so many attempts on her life. When I was over there, I went to her old home where the revolution started, and there are bullet holes all around there where they kept trying to kill her, but they never succeeded. Oh, that was a rotten system of government. They even banished her to a white town, black town within a white town, and they had signs on the doors that said only white people can come in this way. We used to have those in this country, I remember that. But some of us were scared to go through the white doors in this country. I want you to know that Winnie Mandela went through the for white only signs, and all the black folk in the community did too. She would not allow them to defeat her. But I'll tell you something. In 1976, when the children of Soweto rose up, little children, because of the rotten system, and they were determined that our children were going to learn everything in their language. And the children marched, innocent children, And I want you to know that they were shot down like dogs. And on that day, Winnie Mandela started an even greater revolution against that unjust system. It was Winnie Mandela who kept our children before that government, who kept our need for freedom before the world, who kept Nelson Mandela's name before the world, that led to the freedom of South Africa. When I talked to Winnie, I cried and I said, oh God, what can we do to these people who would still hold our people in bondage, who still every day try to persecute her and harass her? And this sister looked at me and she said, Piola, don't worry. God will take care of them. I want you to know that the love that this woman has for all of us, for all people, is something that we don't see often. She is real. She is mother of a nation. She's mother of the world. And I ask you to listen to her and to understand that she only wants one thing. She said she wants a monument built on a hill in South Africa to honor all of those children who died. And I tell you, all 2 million of us ought to buy the soil from the house where the revolution was fought so that that monument can be built. I thank God for this moment. Oh, my sister. Oh, my mother. Oh, my friend. Winnie Madikizela Mandela. A man love. Amandla! Amandla! My dearest sisters, Sister Feli, Sister Khadija, Sister Aliyah, and thousands of other wonderful sisters here, I have no words to thank you for bringing me here to be with my family. I can only say, Amandla! Amandla! And that is your power. The power of the black woman. A million women are a countless women. We are countless today. We are together. All these women here, physically present, the countless who could not be here for one reason or other, but are with us in spirit. To the women of the United States of America, to Afro-American women, I say Amandla! Let that strength
that brought us out of bondage, brought you out of yours, ever prevail. Amandla! 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 Let Amandla ring out in a mighty chant and fill the entire concourse with its power to redeem and reconsecrate the freedom lost, the freedom found. Amandla, I call. Let me hear you after me, because that is your power. The power of your call invokes your Africa and mine. It recaptures the roots lost, and the roots found. The roots reconsecrated to make us one, African and Afro-American, daughters of two continents, united as one, as Afro-Americans, sisters of Africa, brought out of slavery and Americanized. I embrace you. I celebrate you for all that you have achieved. You do not stand just yourselves today. Eons of time stand with you, for ancestors walk with you. You are empowered by their strength, by their suffering. I was never enslaved as they were, and yet I was as enslaved as them, banned and banished, imprisoned and tortured, separated from husband and children. How different was my condition from that of your enslaved matriarchs. Women of Afro-American women, yours is a story of survival and more. It is a story of victory. Victory over every conceivable oppression. Oppression breeds oppression. The oppressed remain trapped in poverty. For generations, the humiliations of want keep them company, keep them fettered in hunger and pain. But you have overcome the spiral of oppression. You have empowered yourselves. Your very presence today, your unity, your solidarity manifests your power, your strength, the capacity to overcome all odds, to stand liberated, and credit to the human race. In your veins, your hearts, and your souls run the blood and spirit of your ancestral matriarchs who lived in the 18th century and 19th century, kidnapped from their African shores, born in slavery, raised in slavery, violated in slavery, who broke their chains and burst their shackles and mounted anti-slavery platforms and founded anti-racist associations, the National Association of Colored Women, the Federation of Afro-American Women, the Black Women's Suffrage Movement, and resounded their voices in prose and poem to reverberate the song of freedom as only those liberated from oppression can. You have made us proud in Africa through your long line of freedom fighters: Francis Harper, Lucy Delaney, Marty Jackson, Susie King Taylor, Pauline Elizabeth Hopkins, Annie Burton, Kate Duckgold, Harriet Jacobs, Lucy Terry, Phyllis Whitley, Old Elizabeth, Mary Prince. The list grows and enters into the 20th century. On and on the names accumulate of Afro-American heroines, those recorded and those not. The unsung strugglers who swore their children would never be slaves, those of whom Francis Harper wrote, "By law, they torture and chase a woman whose crime is the hue of her face, with her step on the ice and her arm on her child. Oh, poverty, danger and death she can brave, for the child of her love is no longer a slave." Harriet Tubman, who ran her underground train and rescued 300 slaves from the South and 756 more as a guerrilla leader in the Union Army, piloting black troops up the Combahee. "I will give every drop of blood in my veins to free them," she said, and she did. Sojourner Truth, who escaped from slavery and against all odds fought to free her 5-year-old son, kidnapped and enslaved. "When I left the house of bondage," she said, "I left everything behind." But she stepped into the double oppression of race and woman, and she wrote, "Aren't I a woman? That men over there say a woman needs to be helped into carriages and lifted over dishes and have the best place everywhere. Nobody ever helped me into carriages or over mud puddles or gives me a best place. Aren't I a woman? I have plowed and planted, and no man could heed me. I have borne 13 children, and sin most of all, sold into slavery. And when I cried out a mother's grief, none but Jesus heard me. And aren't I a woman?" That little man in black there say, a woman can't have as much rights as a man, because Christ wasn't a woman. Where did your Christ come from? From God and a woman. Men had nothing to do with him. If the first woman God ever made was strong enough to turn the world upside down, all alone, together, women ought to be able to turn it right side up again. And that was Sojourner Truth. And to her question, can't women together turn the world right side up again? Our answer is here today. Of course we can. Of course we will. And of course we are doing it. And how do we in Africa see you, Afro-American women? I give you your praise in the words of our best black writer, and a woman writer, our sister Bessie Heard. She wrote about the woman from America who came to her village in Botswana, and this is what she wrote. Her big, strong stride has worn the pathway of the village flat. She is everywhere about because she is a woman, resolved and unshakable in herself. She is the most oddly beautiful person I have ever seen. Every cross current of the earth seems to have stopped in her and blended into an amazing harmony. She has a big dash of Africa, a dash of Germany, some Cherokee, and heaven knows what else. Her feet are big, and her body is as tall and straight and strong as a mountain tree. Her neck curves up high, and her thick black hair cascades down her back like a wild and tormented stream. Her mounting and shouting matches with authority are the terror and sensation of the village. It has come down to this: either the woman is unreasonable or authority is unreasonable. And everyone in his heart would like to admit that authority is unreasonable. She is a new kind of America, or even maybe will be a new kind of African, to come from a world of chicken, hamburgers, television, escalators, and whatnot, to a village mud hut and a life so tough where most you can afford to eat is ground millet and boiled meat. Sometimes you cannot afford to eat at all. Always you have to trudge miles for a bucket of water and carry it home on your head, and do all this with loud, ringing, sprawling laughter. Black people in America care much about Africa, and she has come here on her own as an expression of that love and concern. Through her, too, one is filled with wonder for a country that breeds individuals about whom, without and within, rushes the wind of freedom. She is a different person who has taken by force and was taken by force what America will not give back to black people. The woman from America loves both Africa and America independently. She can take what she wants from us both and say, damn it, it is a difficult thing to do. That was Bessie Heard, who died prematurely. We concur with her. Today, as we stand in our countless numbers, I say it is a lovely thing to be African and American, Afro-American. How did you do it? Become two in one, African and American. And you are African and American. You did it by taking both and the best of both continents. Not a single name I have listed of yours, forebears in African. They are the names of the masters. Slave names, you may say, but those women made their own names. They converted to Christianity and made Christianity their own in their worship and their gospel of music. And the nation of Islam recovered Islam from their African roots and made Islam their own. You survive and overcome despite your poverty, because your lives are enshrined in values that are immortal, values that are your own. You gave us black consciousness. You gave us black pride. You made it into your own, our very own. We have a shared destiny, a shared responsibility to save our world from the violence that wrecks it, that tyranny that dehumanizes it, the greed that destroys the God-given values of Islam and Christianity, and all the religions of the world that preserve our democracy, our fraternity, and our humanity. We must conquer the avarice of globalization that threatens to eat up our forests, pollute our air and our waters, destroy our flora and fauna, our cultures and languages, our democracy and our dreams of equality. We confronted the terror of the tyranny in Pretoria in 1952, when we told the white dominator, you touch a woman, you touch the rock. Yes. We sang as we did so in our march to Pretoria. The man called Stradom did not listen. He touched us. He shot and killed our children in 1976. But he died. He ruled the day. We rule today. But it doesn't mean that if we rule, we cannot make mistakes. It does not mean we rule right. We too can go wrong. The wrongs multiply, and when they become overbearing, we too rule the day. 1 million women, countless women, African American women, American women, women of Asia and Australia's, women of the world, unite to restore peace and prosperity, so that the 21st century will be the best mankind has known. We march into the 21st century with all our might as black women, and we say, as we march to that 20th century, Amandla! 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 I thank you. Winnie Mandela! Winnie! 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 Sisters, Winnie Mandela! I will now bring you our national coordinator for the Winnie Women March, in charge of public relations, Sister Barbara Smith. Hey, my sister.
all the way from Arizona?
Philly in the house.
I'm from
Arizona.
I'm from Tennessee. How you been doing, all y'all folks up here?
Arizona.
Come on, ride over here.
Oh, wait a minute. That's right. You know what? It's all right. Yo, brother, could you help me over this side?
Check this out. We got shirts.
Good.
We just jamming for the Million Woman March. Yes, I.
All right.
From Washington, D.C. by way of Africa.
How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, and you, sir?
Pretty good. Where are you from?
I'm from Orlando, Florida.
Orlando, Florida?
Yes, came all over here from Orlando.
What were some of the components in the march that really made you, how did it impact you?
Well, the march impacted me in the sense that you had black women coming together in unity and in solidarity, working around the issues that affect black women, such things as housing, women that are incarcerated, and oppression in general for black women in here in America, and oppression of women all over the world. The black woman has been under bondage in this country for over 400 years, and things such as freedom, justice, and equality are things that we are unifying and solidifying around. So we're in unity and in solidarity with all of our sisters that have the same goals in mind as we have.
Thank you very much. Where are you from? Where are you from?
Asa.
Where are you from?
Hi, I'm from here actually. I'm really from New York, but we all go to school here. This is Tracy.
Hi, Tracy.
And that's Kristen, my roommate, and Alita.
Now, how did the Million Woman March impact you? What were some of the issues that you think were significant?
Do you know what? Actually, we got here a little late, but it's really just to see sisterhood because, the Million Man March, yes, it was very necessary, but the Million Woman March was necessary also because women don't get along with each other. We don't acknowledge each other, we're always tearing each other down in little ways. And I mean, today even a little slight smile was nice, so that was my bigger issue. I don't have any kids or anything. I know there's a lot going on in the black community, but I don't have any kids or anything. But just the fact that other women are smiling at each other, it's not, ooh, her hair's a weave or blah, 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 silly things like that. It's actually a nice day.
Thank you. Hi. What is your name?
Florence.
Where are you from?
Denver, but by way of New York. I live in New York now.
And how were you impacted by the Million Woman March?
I think it's just an opportunity for me to get together and meet some new ladies. I mean, I think about, we were talking about Get on the Bus, the movie, and how their march was more so the fact that they got together and were with, sisters, and in their case brothers, but just to be able to vibe off of each other and, understand and love each other. That's what we were doing, just out here loving each other.
So you really enjoyed it?
Yeah. See all the beautiful variety of faces and, ideas and knowledge and thoughts and ages. It's, very lovely.